When 30 assassins attacked the Korean Mafia boss, everyone ran. Only a black waitress stepped forward, armed with one needle. The needle slipped between the third assassin's vertebrae with surgical precision, and Christina Wells watched him drop before the others even realized their formation had been breached. 27 more to go. The cafe, her cafe, where she'd served coffee and pastries for 3 years, had become a war zone in under 90 seconds. And the man they'd come to kill, Park Hae-jong, sat frozen at his usual corner table, dark eyes wide with something between shock and recognition as he watched a waitress move like death incarnate. But let's rewind. Because the story of how a 26-year-old black woman with acupuncture needles hidden in her apron became the only thing standing between LA's most powerful Korean crime lord and 30 trained killers starts 6 months earlier, with burnt coffee and a marriage proposal that never came. 6 months earlier, Christina had always believed in signs. Her grandmother, a root worker from Louisiana, had taught her to read the world's whispers, the way birds flew before storms, how certain dreams preceded deaths, the feeling in your spine when your life was about to pivot. So when Marcus didn't show up for their anniversary dinner at the expensive restaurant he'd chosen, and her spine tingled with that specific electricity, she knew. She sat alone for 43 minutes before checking her phone. One text, "Can't do this anymore. You're too intense. Too much. I need normal. Too intense." Code for, "You scare me." Because Christina wasn't soft, wasn't easy, wasn't the kind of woman who giggled and deferred and made men feel big. She was sharp edges and hard truths, 6 feet tall in heels with natural hair she wore like a crown, and a gaze that made people confess things they'd never said aloud. Marcus had called it intimidating. Her grandmother had called it power. She'd left the restaurant with her head high and her heart cracked, walked 12 blocks in stilettos she'd bought special, and ended up at Nightingale Cafe, a tiny Korean-owned spot in Koreatown that stayed open late and never asked questions. The owner, Mrs. Lim, took one look at Christina's face and poured her the most expensive soju they had. "Men are trash," Mrs. Lim said in heavily accented English, sitting across from Christina like they were old friends instead of customer and owner. "But you are not broken. You are too strong for weak man." "I'm unemployed," Christina said, the soju burning down her throat. "I just quit my nursing job last month because the hospital was killing patients through negligence, and nobody would listen to me. I have $3,000 to my name. No man, no job, and apparently I'm too intense to love." Mrs. Lim studied her for a long moment. "You were nurse?" "Trauma nurse, 5 years. Before that, I studied traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, pressure points, energy meridians. My grandmother practiced folk healing, and I wanted to understand the science behind the magic." Christina laughed bitterly. "Fat lot of good it did me. Can't heal a broken heart with needle placement." "Maybe can't heal heart," Mrs. Lim said slowly, "but can heal other things. I need waitress. Someone smart. Someone who sees things. You want job?" Christina should have said no. Should have gone home, updated her resume, found another nursing position. Instead, she heard herself say, "Yes. When do I start?" "Tomorrow, 6 a.m. And Christina?" Mrs. Lim's eyes held hers. "This neighborhood, this cafe, we see things here. Dangerous things. You be careful, but also, you be ready. I think you are a woman who can handle danger." At the time, Christina thought Mrs. Lim meant rowdy customers or late-night drunks. She had no idea she was being recruited into the outer orbit of LA's Korean underworld, where the Nightingale Cafe served as neutral ground for territorial negotiations, and where the most dangerous man in the city came every morning for coffee and silence. Park Hae-jong first walked into Nightingale Cafe on Christina's third day. She noticed him immediately, impossible not to. 28 years old, moving with the controlled grace of an apex predator, wearing a black suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, but it was the tattoo that marked him. An intricate dragon that started behind his right ear and coiled down his neck, disappearing beneath his collar. In Korean organized crime, neck tattoos weren't fashion. They were declarations of rank and danger. He took the corner table, the one with a clear view of both entrances and the kitchen, and waited. Every person in the cafe went silent. Mrs. Lim appeared from the back, bowed deeply, more respect than Christina had seen her show anyone, and spoke rapid Korean. The man responded in a voice like smoke and gravel, then his eyes found Christina. Coffee, he said in perfect English. Black, no sugar. Christina had dealt with powerful men before. Doctors who thought their degrees made them gods. Administrators who wielded policy like weapons. She'd learned early that the only way to survive them was to never show fear. So she walked to his table with her spine straight, poured his coffee, and met his eyes directly. Anything else? Her voice was steady, professional, completely unimpressed. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or interest. No, thank you. He paused, then added, You're new. 3 days. You gonna tell me the secret handshake, or do I have to guess? The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. No handshake, just be observant. This cafe is special, protected. What happens here stays here. Understood? Understood. Though I'm more concerned with tips than drama. I tip well. He pulled out his wallet and placed a $100 bill on the table. For a $3 coffee. For your discretion. Christina looked at the money, then back at him. Every instinct screamed that taking it meant accepting something bigger than a generous tip. But her bank account was screaming louder. Discretion purchased, she said, pocketing the bill. Though I don't even know what I'm being discreet about. You will. His eyes held hers for a beat too long. You're not afraid of me. Should I be? Most people haven't spent 5 years in LA trauma centers. You'd need to be a lot scarier than you look. She turned to leave, then paused. Though the neck tattoo is a nice touch. Very don't fuck with me energy. This time he did smile, brief but genuine. What's your name? Christina Wells. Yours? Park Hae-jong. He said it like she should recognize it. When she didn't react, his smile widened slightly. You really are new. Brand new. But I'm a quick study. I believe you. He picked up his coffee. I come here every morning at 6:30. I'll want the same thing. Coffee, black, no sugar. And Christina? He waited until she turned back. Thank you for treating me like a person. She nodded and walked away, feeling his eyes follow her. That night she Googled his name and understood why everyone had gone silent. Park Hae-jong wasn't just connected to organized crime. He ran it. Head of the Park family, controlling everything from gambling to protection rackets to legitimate businesses that laundered more money than some countries' GDP. Dangerous didn't begin to cover it. She should have quit, should have run. Instead, she showed up the next morning at 6:15, made his coffee exactly how he liked it, and served it without comment. He nodded his thanks, left another $100 tip, and the pattern was set. Over the next 3 months, Christina learned the cafe's ecosystem. Morning belonged to Park Hae-jong, 1 hour of solitude where he reviewed documents, made calls in rapid Korean, and occasionally just stared out the window like he was solving equations only he could see. Afternoon brought local business owners, mostly Korean immigrants who treated Mrs. Lim like a queen, and Christina with cautious respect once they realized she was Hae-jong's waitress. Evening was when things got interesting. Rival faction leaders would arrive, taking separate tables, negotiating through intermediaries while Christina served tea and pretended not to notice the guns poorly hidden under suit jackets. Mrs. Lim had been right. The cafe was neutral ground, protected by unspoken rules that even criminals respected. And through it all, Christina watched, learned. Her nursing background made her observant. She'd been trained to spot the tiny signs of distress, the micro-expressions that preceded crashes. Now she used those skills to read the room, to sense when tensions were rising, when to disappear into the kitchen, when to appear with more coffee and a smile that diffused situations she didn't fully understand. Park Hae-jong noticed. He always noticed. You're wasted as a waitress, he said one morning, about 2 months into their routine. You read people better than half my intelligence operatives. Maybe I'm a spy. Christina said lightly, refilling his cup. If you were, you'd be dead. He said it matter-of-factly, not threatening. Just truth. I had you investigated after the first week. Former trauma nurse, exemplary record until you filed 17 complaints about patient care protocols, blacklisted by the hospital system for being a problem employee. He looked up at her. You put patient safety over career advancement. That's rare. Christina's spine prickled. That specific warning tingle. You investigated me? I investigate everyone who gets close to me. Can't afford not to. He pulled out another document. I also know you studied acupuncture and traditional medicine, that you can map every pressure point in the human body, that your grandmother taught you things most people would call superstition, but you call strategy. And what exactly do you plan to do with this information? Christina's voice was ice. Offer you a job. My organization needs a medical consultant, someone who understands both Western medicine and Eastern techniques, someone discreet, observant, and not afraid of blood. His eyes held hers. You'd make 10 times what you make here. Have resources, protection, purpose. You want me to be your mob doctor. I want you to be yourself, but with better pay and more interesting challenges. Christina laughed, sharp, disbelieving. You're insane. I serve coffee. I'm not interested in joining a criminal enterprise. You're serving coffee because the system failed you, because you told the truth and got punished for it. I'm offering you a place where truth and skill actually matter. He leaned back. Think about it. No pressure. But Christina, you're already in this world. You've been serving at tea for 2 months. Might as well get paid properly. She walked away without answering, but his words burrowed into her brain. Because he was right. She was already complicit by proximity, and some part of her, the part her grandmother had warned her about, was intrigued. The shift in their relationship happened on a Tuesday in early December. Christina was closing up. Mrs. Lim had left early for a family emergency when 3 men walked in 5 minutes before closing time. Not regulars, not respectful. They took a booth and ordered in English that dripped with contempt. Coffee, and make it good, girl. Christina's jaw tightened at girl, but she poured the coffee silently, her grandmother's voice in her head. Pick your battles, baby. Sometimes strength looks like walking away. You work for Park? The leader, white, mid-30s, with prison tattoos crawling up his neck, leaned back in the booth. Must be nice serving the king of Koreatown. I serve coffee to anyone who orders it, including you. Christina set down the cups and turned to leave. We didn't dismiss you. His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. Sit down. We want to talk about your boss. Every self-defense instinct Christina had acquired, from her brothers, from nursing, from surviving as a tall black woman in spaces that didn't want her, activated. She looked at his hand on her wrist, then at his face. You have 3 seconds to let go before you lose the ability to use that hand. He laughed. You threatening me? Warning you. There's a difference. He squeezed harder. Christina didn't flinch. Instead, with her free hand, she reached into her apron pocket, where she'd started keeping acupuncture needles after a particularly tense evening shift. And before he could react, she'd pressed the needle into the precise pressure point on the back of his hand. Not deep, just enough. His fingers spasmed open, pain radiating up his arm. What the fuck? Hegu point, Christina said calmly, stepping back. Large intestine 4. Governs hand function. The needle's still in there. About 3 millimeters deep. If you move too fast, you'll drive it deeper and potentially lose motor control for days. So I'd suggest sitting very still while I call someone to handle this situation properly. The cafe door opened. Park Hae-jong walked in, took in the scene. 3 hostile men, Christina standing with clinical calm, the needle glinting in the leader's hand, and his expression went from curious to lethal in a heartbeat. Christina, he said quietly, step back. They were asking about you. I was explaining about boundaries. She didn't move. I can see that. The slightest hint of amusement beneath the danger. But I'll take it from here. What happened next took 45 seconds. Park Hae-jong moved like violence choreographed, Precise strikes that left all three men on the floor, conscious but subdued. He pulled out his phone, made a call in Korean, then turned to Christina. Remove the needle. She did, professionally, like she was in a clinic instead of a crime scene. The man clutched his hand, whimpering. It's going to hurt for about an hour, she told him conversationally, but no permanent damage. This time. Park Hae-jong's people arrived, two men who moved with the same predatory grace, and removed the three men without a word. When they were alone, Park Hae-jong looked at Christina with something new in his eyes. Respect. Maybe even a hint of fear. Where did you learn that? Told you. I studied acupuncture. Pressure points. My grandmother called it the soft art of hard consequences. Most people think acupuncture is just for pain relief and wellness. But in the right hands, with the right knowledge, she shrugged. The human body is just a map of vulnerabilities. You used a healing art as a weapon. I used knowledge to enforce boundaries. There's a difference. He studied her for a long moment. You're not what I expected when I first saw you. Most people underestimate the angry black girl with a nursing degree. Their mistake, not mine. I'm not most people. He moved closer, and Christina felt the air change between them. And I don't underestimate you. That's why I want you in my organization. Not as decoration, not as some diversity hire, as the most dangerous person in any room. I serve coffee. You're a weapon pretending to be a waitress. And we both know it. His voice dropped lower. The question is, how long are you going to keep pretending? Christina wanted to argue, wanted to maintain the fiction that she was just a woman serving coffee, trying to move on from a broken heart and a failed career. But looking at Park Hae-jong, at the respect in his eyes, not fear of her blackness or her height or her intensity, but genuine respect for her skills, she felt something shift inside her. I'll think about it, she said finally, but I'm not making any promises. Fair enough. He pulled out his wallet, but this time he handed her a business card instead of cash. My private number. If you ever need anything, safety, resources, a way out of a situation, you call that number. Day or night. Understood? Christina took the card. Their fingers brushed, and that tingle ran up her spine again. Warning or promise, she couldn't tell. Understood. He left, and Christina locked up the cafe with shaking hands. Not from fear, from adrenaline, from the realization that she'd just crossed a line she couldn't uncross. And the most terrifying part? She didn't want to go back. Over the next 3 months, Christina existed in a strange liminal space. Officially, she was still just a waitress at Nightingale Cafe. Unofficially, she'd become Park Hae-jong's consultant, a role that meant late-night calls asking about pressure points or nerve clusters, encrypted texts with medical questions, and occasional requests to assess people who came to negotiate with him. Can you tell if someone's lying? He asked one morning in mid-December. Depends. Pathological liars can fool anyone. But most people? Yes. Pupil dilation, micro-expressions, breathing patterns. I can read stress signals. I have a meeting tonight, high stakes. I need to know if my counterpart is negotiating in good faith or planning betrayal. He set down his coffee. Will you be there? Just observe. Just tell me what you see. That's not waitressing. No. It's consulting, which is what I've been trying to hire you for since September. His eyes found hers. I'll pay you $5,000 for 2 hours of your time. Just watch, observe, and tell me what your instincts say. $5,000. Christina's rent, utilities, and student loan payment combined. For doing what she was already good at, reading people, seeing the things they tried to hide. Fine, but I'm not doing anything illegal. I observe, I report, that's it. That's all I'm asking. The meeting was in a private room at an upscale Korean barbecue restaurant. Christina posed as Park Hae-jong's assistant, sitting slightly behind him, tablet in hand like she was taking notes. In reality, she was cataloging every tell, every micro-expression, every stress indicator from the man across the table. A Chinese gang leader negotiating territory agreements. 15 minutes in, Christina saw it. The man's left hand, hidden under the table, making small tapping motions. Morse code. Someone was feeding him information through an earpiece. She leaned forward, whispered in Park Hae-jong's ear. He's wired, receiving signals. Left ear, probably audio. Someone's coaching his responses. Park Hae-jong didn't react outwardly, just nodded slightly and adjusted his strategy, asking unexpected questions that couldn't be prescripted. The Chinese leader stumbled, recovered, stumbled again. Within 10 minutes, he'd admitted the trap, a planned ambush after the meeting, pending Park Hae-jong's agreement to move his operations into a specific warehouse district. They left through the kitchen, security flanking them. In the car, Park Hae-jong turned to Christina. You just saved my life. I just noticed he was tapping his fingers. Basic observation. Basic observation that most of my trained operatives missed. He pulled out an envelope, thick with cash. 5,000 as promised. And Christina? The offer stands. I need someone with your skills full-time. I'll think about it. But they both knew she was running out of reasons to say no. The night before New Year's Eve, everything changed. Christina was walking home from a late shift. Mrs. Lim had asked her to stay for inventory when her spine started tingling. That warning. She'd learned to trust it absolutely. She slowed her pace, looked around. 3 men. Following her, not even trying to hide it. She reached for her phone to call Park Hae-jong's number, the one she'd memorized but never used, when one of them called out, Christina Wells, Park Hae-jong's pet. The voice was American, Southern accent. We've been looking for you. She turned slowly. The men wore expensive suits, but their eyes were dead. Professional killers trying to pass as businessmen. I think you have me confused with someone else. We don't. You're the waitress, the one who sees things. We have questions about your boss. You're going to answer them. Christina calculated distances. 3 against 1, all bigger than her. But they were bunched together, tactical error. And they hadn't drawn weapons yet, which meant they wanted her conscious and talking. Advantage. I just served coffee, she said, letting her accent deepen, playing into their assumptions. I don't know anything about Mr. Park's business. Liar! The leader moved closer. Everyone knows you're his new intel asset. The black girl with the magic needles? So here's how this works. You're going to tell us about his security protocols, his schedule, his weaknesses, and if you don't, he smiled coldly. Well, there are other ways to make people talk. Christina's hand slipped into her coat pocket, fingers finding the acupuncture needle case she now carried everywhere. And if I say no, then we hurt you until you say yes. Wrong answer. She moved, fast. The first needle went into the leader's carotid sinus point. Not deep enough to kill, but enough to drop his blood pressure instantly. He gasped, stumbled. The second man rushed her. She sidestepped, drove a needle into his brachial plexus. His right arm went dead. The third man finally got his gun out. Christina was already inside his guard, one hand trapping the weapon, the other driving a needle into his radial nerve. The gun clattered to the pavement. She kicked it away, then stepped back. 3 needles deployed. 3 men writhing on the ground. Her phone was in her hand before they could recover. She dialed Park Hae-jong's number. He answered on the first ring. Christina? 3 men just tried to grab me. 2 blocks from the cafe. I subdued them, but there might be more. Don't move. I'm 3 minutes away. The line stayed open. She heard him giving rapid orders in Korean, the sound of car engines starting. Are you hurt? No, but they knew about me. Called me your intel asset. Someone's been watching the cafe. Fuck. Genuine worry in his voice. This is my fault. I shouldn't have involved you. I made you a target. Little late for guilt. Just get here. Park Hae-jong arrived with 4 vehicles and a small army. While his men secured the 3 attackers, he pulled Christina aside, hands gripping her shoulders, eyes scanning her for injuries. Are you sure you're okay? I'm fine, shaken, but fine. She met his eyes. But you need to explain what's happening. Why are rival gangs targeting your waitress? Because you're not just my waitress anymore. He stopped, jaw tightening. You're important to me, and people have noticed. The words hung between them, loaded with implications neither had voiced before. Important how? Christina asked quietly. Important enough that I can't sleep if I don't know you're safe. Important enough that I've reassigned two of my best people to watch your apartment. Important enough that seeing you in danger makes me want to burn this entire city down." He released her shoulders, stepping back like he'd revealed too much. "I'm sorry. This is inappropriate. You're an employee, not what?" She moved closer, closing the distance he'd created. "Say it, Haejong. Not just someone who works for me." His voice dropped lower. "Not just a consultant or a friend. You're more. You've been more since you put that needle in that asshole's hand and didn't even flinch. Since you walked into my world without fear and made me remember what it feels like to want something beyond power and control." Christina's heart was racing. "I broke up with my boyfriend 6 months ago because he said I was too intense. Too much. And here you are, running a criminal empire, telling me I make you feel things. This is insane. Completely." His hand came up to cup her cheek, thumb brushing across her lips. "But I stopped pretending to be sane a long time ago. The question is, are you brave enough to be insane with me?" Before she could answer, one of his men called out in Korean. Park Hae-jong's expression shifted instantly, back to the cold, calculating leader. "We need to move. Now. This was a coordinated attack. They'll have more people coming. Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe. My headquarters. You're staying with me until we sort this out." "I can't just—" "You can, and you will." His eyes locked on hers. "Christina, I won't let anyone hurt you because of me. You're under my protection now. Full stop." Something in his tone told her arguing was pointless. And honestly, some part of her didn't want to argue. Wanted the protection, the certainty, the way he looked at her like she was precious and dangerous all at once. "Fine, but we're having a serious conversation about boundaries after this." "Deal." His smile was brief but genuine. "Though I should warn you, I'm terrible at boundaries where you're concerned." Park Hae-jong's headquarters was a fortress disguised as a luxury apartment building in downtown LA. The penthouse took up the entire top floor, floor-to-ceiling windows with bulletproof glass, security systems that would make the Pentagon jealous, and enough weapons hidden in plain sight to overthrow a small country. "This is where you live?" Christina asked, taking in the space. "Modern, expensive, but oddly impersonal, like a hotel suite, not a home." "This is where I work. I haven't had a home in a long time." He shrugged off his jacket, and Christina saw the gun holster, the tension in his shoulders. "Make yourself comfortable. You'll stay in the guest suite. Private bathroom, separate entrance if you need space. My room is on the other side of the penthouse. Very proper for a crime lord. I'm many things, but I'm not a man who takes advantage of vulnerable situations." His eyes held hers. "You're here because I need to know you're safe. Nothing more. Unless you decide you want more." The implication sent heat through Christina's body. "And if I do want more, then I'd tell you that I've wanted you since the first time you looked at me without fear. That I've imagined what your mouth tastes like about 1,000 times. That seeing you take down 3 men with acupuncture needles was the hottest thing I've ever witnessed." He moved closer. "But I'd also tell you that my world is dangerous, that loving me comes with a target on your back, and that I'm asking you to risk everything for someone who might not survive the year." "You're really selling it," Christina said dryly. "I'm being honest, because you deserve honesty, not pretty lies." He reached out, tucking a curl behind her ear. "So think about it. Take the night. Tomorrow is New Year's Eve, and I have a situation that needs handling. After that, we'll talk about what comes next. For now, just stay safe, please." He left her then, disappearing into another part of the penthouse. Christina stood alone in the guest suite, looking out over LA's glittering skyline, and wondered how her life had become a K-drama plot. 6 months ago, she was a trauma nurse with a mediocre boyfriend and a stable career. Now she was a waitress turned assassin consultant living in a crime lord's penthouse, catching feelings for a man who could probably have her killed with a phone call. Her grandmother's voice echoed, "Baby, when the universe speaks, you listen. All that matters is, does he see you? Really see you? Not the mask, not the armor, But the real you underneath? And the terrifying answer was yes. Park Hae-jong saw her. All of her. The intensity, the anger, the brilliance, the violence she kept carefully controlled. He saw it and wanted it. Wanted her. She pulled out her phone and texted her best friend Nia. Remember how I said my life was boring? I lied. Call you tomorrow if I survive. Nia's response was immediate. Girl, what? Are you okay? Do I need to call the police? I'm fine. Better than fine. Just navigating some complicated feelings for a complicated man. Complicated like has emotional baggage, or complicated like might be a serial killer. Complicated like runs a criminal organization, but also makes me feel seen for the first time in my life. Christina, babe, we need to talk about your taste in men. I know, tomorrow. Promise. She set down the phone and caught her reflection in the window. Still Christina. Still the woman who'd walked away from nursing because she refused to compromise her ethics. But also somehow different, sharper, more dangerous. Like she'd been waiting her whole life to step into this version of herself. The next morning, New Year's Eve, Christina woke to the smell of coffee and something baking. She found Park Hae-jong in the kitchen, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt that revealed the full extent of his tattoos, dragons and phoenixes coiling across his arms. Korean characters she couldn't read scattered across his ribs. You cook? She asked, surprised. I survive. There's a difference. He poured her coffee, black, no sugar, exactly how she liked it even though she'd never told him. I made Korean pancakes, probably burned them, but the effort counts. The pancakes were actually good. They ate in comfortable silence, and Christina found herself relaxing into the domesticity of it. This dangerous man who could kill without hesitation, making her breakfast like they were normal people with normal lives. I have to go out tonight, he said eventually. Meeting with the Lee family, Chinese syndicate. They're the ones who sent those men after you. We're negotiating terms to prevent an all-out war. Sounds dangerous. It is, which is why you're staying here. Armed guards, full security. You'll be safe. And you? Will you be safe? Something flickered in his expression. I'm always careful. That's not what I asked. He set down his fork, meeting her eyes. No, I probably won't be safe. The Lee family wants my territory, my operations. This meeting is a formality before violence. But if there's a chance to avoid bloodshed, I have to take it. Too many people depend on me. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. You said you value my ability to read people, to spot lies and danger signals. Christina leaned forward. How many times have I been right in the past 3 months? How many traps have I helped you avoid? Every time. But Christina, this is different. These aren't street thugs or low-level operatives. The Lee family has been in this game for generations. If things go wrong, then you'll need someone watching your back who isn't thinking about territory or power or revenge. Someone who just wants you to survive. She reached across the table, taking his hand. Let me do this. Please. He stared at their joined hands for a long moment. You're asking me to put you in the line of fire. I'm asking you to trust that I can handle myself, that I'm not some delicate flower who needs protecting from reality. Her grip tightened. Hey, Jong, I spent 5 years keeping people alive in trauma centers. I've seen more blood and death than most of your soldiers. I'm not afraid of violence. I'm afraid of sitting here safe while you walk into danger alone. Why? His voice was rough. Why do you care so much? Because sometime in the last 6 months between terrible coffee and acupuncture needles and late-night conversations about pressure points, I started falling for you. The confession came out raw, unplanned. Because you see me, really see me, and I can't remember the last time anyone did that. Because losing you would hurt worse than anything Marcus ever did. Park Hae-jong closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were blazing with something intense and terrifying. If I let you come, you follow my orders exactly. If I say run, you run. If I say hide, you hide. Understood? Understood. And Christina, when this is over, when we survive this, we're having a very different conversation about what you just confessed. Heat flooded her face. Deal. The meeting was set for 9 p.m. at Nightingale Cafe. Neutral ground, Mrs. Lim's territory. Park Hae-jung arrived with a security detail of 8. The Lee family brought 10. Christina wore all black, her acupuncture needles hidden in strategic pockets, and took her position behind Park Hae-jung, playing the role of assistant once again. Lee Wei, head of the Lee family, was in his 50s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed. He greeted Park Hae-jung with false warmth, then his gaze slid to Christina. You bring your pet to negotiations? I bring my consultant, Park Hae-jung said coldly. Show respect or leave. Lee Wei smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Of course. My apologies, Miss Wells. Christina Wells. She didn't offer her hand. They sat. Tea was poured, by Mrs. Lim herself, a sign that she was honoring the sanctity of the meeting. Christina watched everything. The way Lee Wei's men positioned themselves near exits, the bulges under jackets that meant weapons, the nervous energy radiating from the youngest Lee operative. Let's be direct, Lee Wei said. Your territory overlaps with our expansion plans. We're offering you a partnership. Merge operations, split profits 70-30. 70 in whose favor? Park Hae-jung asked. Ours, naturally. We're the larger organization. Christina watched Lee Wei's hands. He was calm, confident, but the young operative behind him, barely 20 by Christina's estimate, kept touching his jacket pocket. Repetitive, anxious gesture. Her spine started tingling. That's a generous offer, Park Hae-jung said, voice dripping sarcasm. And if I refuse? Then we take what we want. Starting tonight. Lee Wei's smile sharpened. I'm giving you a choice, Park. Partnership or war. Christina leaned forward, whispered in Park Hae-jung's ear. The young one behind Lee Wei. Left side. He's armed with something he keeps checking. Nervous. Too nervous. I think it's a detonator. Park Hae-jung's expression didn't change, but she felt him go rigid. His hand moved subtly, signaling his security team. They shifted positions, ready. I need a moment to consider, Park Hae-jung said. Excuse me. He stood, and Christina followed. They moved toward the kitchen, but she felt it, that warning tingle intensifying. She turned just as the young operative pulled something from his pocket. Detonator, just as she'd predicted. Gun! She screamed, knowing no one would understand her panic. But Park Hae-jung reacted instantly, throwing her behind him as chaos erupted. The operative wasn't going for a gun. He was activating the detonator. Christina saw charges planted along the cafe walls, hidden behind picture frames. Enough C4 to bring down the building. Time slowed. She had maybe 3 seconds before detonation. 3 seconds to stop a massacre. Her hand went to her pocket, fingers finding a single acupuncture needle, the longest one she owned, meant for deep tissue work. She moved on pure instinct, past Park Hae-jung, past his security, directly toward the operative. He saw her coming, smiled, didn't see her as a threat. Fatal mistake. She drove the needle into his wrist, into the precise nerve cluster that controlled fine motor function. His fingers spasmed open. The detonator fell. Christina caught it before it hit the ground. Everyone froze. She held up the device, thumb hovering over the disarm button. Anyone moves, this whole building goes up. And trust me, I'm crazy enough to press it. Lee Wei's face went from confident to furious. You stupid girl. That stupid girl just saved all our lives, including yours. Park Hae-jung's gun was out, aimed at Lee Wei's head. You brought explosives to neutral ground, Mrs. Lim's territory. You violated every protocol we have. Proof of your weakness, Lee Wei spat. You can't even control your own woman. She should be dead right now, along with you and everyone in this cafe. But my operative failed, so now we do this the hard way. He gave a signal. His men drew weapons. Park Hae-jung's team responded in kind. Mexican standoff. 20 guns aimed at various targets, and Christina standing in the middle holding a detonator connected to enough explosives to kill them all. Lower your weapons, she said, voice cutting through the tension. All of you, because here's what's going to happen. I'm going to disarm this device. Then Mr. Park and Mr. Lee are going to have a conversation about the consequences of violating neutral ground. And if anyone does anything stupid, I'll drive needles into pressure points that will leave you paralyzed for life. We clear? Silence. Then Leeway laughed, sharp, disbelieving. You're threatening me? Do you have any idea who I am? Someone who's about 30 seconds from either an explosion or a gang war that'll cost more than you can afford. Christina met his eyes. I'm a trauma nurse. I know exactly where to strike to cause maximum pain with minimum effort. So sit down, shut up, and let's resolve this like adults instead of idiots with egos. Another beat of silence. Then Mrs. Lim spoke from behind the counter, voice sharp. The girl is right. You bring bombs to my cafe? You risk my life, my business? Unacceptable. Both of you, Park, Lee, you will negotiate peacefully or you will leave and never return. The invocation of Mrs. Lim's authority changed the temperature. Even Lee Wei couldn't ignore it. She was too respected, too connected. He lowered his gun slowly. His men followed suit. Park Hae-jong did the same. Christina's hands shook as she carefully disarmed the detonator, following the training she'd barely remembered from a single EMT course on bomb threats. When the light went from red to green, she set it down gently and pulled out her phone. I'm calling the police. No! Both Park Hae-jong and Lee Wei spoke simultaneously. The device is disarmed. Everyone's safe. But there's no way I'm letting this slide. She started dialing. Park Hae-jong crossed to her in 3 strides, taking the phone gently. Christina, if you call the police, they'll investigate everyone here, including you, including Mrs. Lim. Do you want that? She hadn't thought about that, about how her involvement would look, about how she'd have to explain why she was at a meeting between rival gang leaders, how she'd known about the bomb, why she had acupuncture needles ready. So what? We just pretend this didn't happen? No, we handle it our way. Park Hae-jong turned to Lee Wei, expression lethal. You violated neutral ground, attempted murder in a protected space. By our laws, that's a death sentence for you and your entire senior staff. He does. Mrs. Lim's voice was quiet but final. I am witness. He is within his rights. Unless, she looked at Park Hae-jong. Unless you show mercy, choose differently. Park Hae-jong was silent for a long moment. Christina could see the calculation in his eyes. The easy path was violence, was making an example. But he'd told her once that he wanted to be more than his father's legacy. This was his chance to prove it. Here's the new deal, he said finally. Lee family pays reparations, $1 million to Mrs. Lim for endangering her establishment, another $1 million split between my organization and the community programs we fund. You withdraw from all disputed territories immediately. And Lee Wei? His voice dropped to something colder than ice. You're out. Retire. Put someone sane in charge of your organization. Because if I ever see you again, mercy won't be an option. Lee Wei looked like he wanted to argue. But 20 guns and one very angry cafe owner convinced him otherwise. Fine. But this isn't over, Park. You've made an enemy tonight. I already had an enemy. Now I just have one who knows better than to fuck with me. Park Hae-jong turned his back dismissively. Leave, before I change my mind. The Lee family left. Slowly, resentfully, but they left. When the cafe was clear except for Park Hae-jong's people and Mrs. Lim, Christina finally let herself breathe. Her legs gave out. She would have hit the floor if Park Hae-jong hadn't caught her. I've got you, he murmured, holding her close. You're okay. You're safe. I almost died. We all almost died. But we didn't. Because you saw what no one else did. Because you acted without hesitation. Christina, you just prevented a war. She looked up at him, reality crashing in. This is your life, every day. Constant danger, constant vigilance, never knowing if someone's going to try to kill you. Yes, he didn't sugarcoat it. This is what loving me means. Nights like this, risk like this. I won't lie to you about that. And if I said I can't do it, can't live like this, pain flashed across his face, then I'd understand. I'd make sure you were protected, Set up somewhere safe, and I'd walk away. Because, Christina, I love you too much to trap you in a life that destroys you. The confession hung between them. I love you, said so simply, so completely, in the middle of a cafe that still smelled like explosives and fear. You love me, Christina repeated, desperately, completely, since the first time you refused to be afraid of me. His hand cupped her cheek. But I won't cage you with that love. If you need to leave, I'll let you go. Christina thought about Marcus, who'd left her for being too intense. Thought about the hospital administration who'd blacklisted her for caring too much. Thought about every person who'd seen her strength and called it threatening instead of valuable. And then she thought about Park Hae-jong, who'd seen her use violence and called her magnificent, who trusted her instincts when lives were at stake, who just offered her freedom instead of guilt. I'm terrified, she said honestly, of the danger, of the violence, of loving someone who might not survive the year. But Hae-jong, she pulled his face down to hers. I'm more terrified of going back to a life where I'm too much, too intense, too everything, where I have to make myself smaller to be acceptable. You make me feel like I can be exactly who I am. You can. You are. His forehead pressed against hers. You're fucking extraordinary, Christina Wells. And if you're willing to risk this with me, I swear on everything I have that I'll spend every day trying to be worthy of that risk. She kissed him then, not gentle, not tentative, but with all the adrenaline and fear and desperate love she'd been holding back. He responded instantly, arms wrapping around her waist, lifting her slightly as the kiss deepened into something consuming. Someone cleared their throat. They broke apart to find Mrs. Lim smiling. About time. I've been watching you two dance around each other for months. Now get out of my cafe. I have to clean up from this mess. They laughed, giddy, relieved, alive. Park Hae-jong kept his arm around Christina as they walked out into the night air. Fireworks had started early, people celebrating New Year's Eve, completely unaware that 30 people had almost died in an explosion half an hour ago. I should give Mrs. Lim that $1 million just for putting up with me, Park Hae-jong said. You really going to pay Lee family's reparations? Every cent. And I meant what I said. I'm done with the violence. Tonight proved it. There has to be a better way. So what now? You retire? We open a coffee shop somewhere, quiet? He laughed. Not quite that simple, but I'm transitioning everything legitimate, using the power I have to build something better. Community programs, education, opportunities for people who need them. He stopped walking, turning to face her. And I want you beside me, not as an employee or a consultant, as my partner. In everything. That's basically a proposal, Park Hae-jong. Consider it a pre-proposal. The real one comes when I'm not covered in adrenaline and we're not standing outside a cafe that nearly exploded. His smile was crooked, genuine. But yes, eventually, if you'll have me. Ask me again in 6 months, Christina said, lacing her fingers through his. After I've seen you handle board meetings and charity galas, prove you're not just good in a crisis. Deal. Though I warn you, I'm terrible at galas. I threaten people when I'm bored. Perfect. I'll keep you entertained. They walked back to his penthouse as midnight approached, changed into comfortable clothes, opened champagne, and stood on the balcony watching fireworks explode over the city. At exactly midnight, Park Hae-jong pulled Christina close and kissed her like it was both the first time and the 1,000th, like she was everything he'd been missing and everything he'd been searching for. Happy New Year, he murmured against her lips. Happy New Year. She smiled against his mouth. To surviving explosions and falling for dangerous men and whatever insanity comes next. To finding someone brave enough to love me at my worst and call me out when I'm being an idiot. To us, Christina said simply, however long we get. Forever, Park Hae-jong corrected. We're getting forever. I don't care what I have to do to make it happen. 6 months later, Christina stood in front of the newly renovated community center, funded entirely by Park Hae-jong's legitimate businesses, staffed by former gang members transitioning to legal work, offering everything from job training to addiction counseling to free medical clinics. Her medical clinic specifically, where she practiced both Western medicine and traditional acupuncture for anyone who needed it. The center's name was etched above the door in English and Korean, the Second Chance Initiative. You like it? Park Hae-jong asked, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. I love it. 6 months ago, I was serving coffee and hiding from my own potential. Now I'm running a clinic, training other nurses, actually making a difference. She turned in his arms. You did this. We did this. Your vision, your expertise. I just provided the funding and intimidated the right people to cut through red tape. He kissed her forehead. But speaking of 6 months, he dropped to one knee, and Christina's heart stopped. From his pocket, he produced a ring. Simple band with a single diamond, elegant and understated, exactly her style. You told me to ask again in 6 months, to prove I was good at more than crisis management. His eyes held hers. Christina Wells, I've attended 73 board meetings without threatening anyone. I've donated $4 million to charity. I've transitioned 90% of my operations to legal businesses. And every single day, I've woken up grateful that you took a chance on a dangerous man in a cafe 6 months ago. You forgot the part where you accidentally started a fashion line because you got bored at Fashion Week and told a designer her cuts were wrong. Christina interjected, smiling through tears. That was one time, and I was right. Her hemlines were terrible. He grinned. But yes, I'm still a work in progress. Still learning to channel intensity into something besides violence. Still figuring out how to be the man I want to be instead of the man I was raised to be. But Christina, you make me want to be better. You make me believe I can be. So marry me. Build this life with me. Have my children, who'll inherit your strength and my stubbornness and probably terrify everyone they meet. Grow old with me, even if old age means constantly watching our backs and occasionally needing to intimidate people. Say yes. Christina looked at the ring, at the man holding it, at the life they'd built from violence and coffee and acupuncture needles. Thought about the waitress she'd been 6 months ago, heartbroken and aimless, and the woman she was now, powerful, purposeful, loved completely for exactly who she was. Yes, she said, pulling him up and kissing him hard. Yes, you ridiculous reform crime lord. I'll marry you. The gathered crowd, staff members from the center, Mrs. Lim, Christina's best friend Nia, who'd flown in for the surprise, Park Hae-jong's security team, erupted in cheers. Someone popped champagne. Someone else started playing music. You planned this, Christina accused, looking at all the witnesses. I planned it the day after you agreed to try 6 months ago. Been carrying that ring every day since, waiting for the perfect moment. He slid it onto her finger. Turns out the perfect moment is just now, with you, anywhere. They danced in the street as the sun set, surrounded by people who'd become family, building something beautiful from the broken pieces they'd both brought to this. And Christina thought about the night she'd met him. New Year's Eve, a cafe that almost exploded. 30 assassins who'd never seen her coming. What are you thinking? Park Hae-jong asked, holding her close. That I stopped 30 assassins with a single needle. That I fell in love with the most dangerous man in LA. That somehow, impossibly, this is my life now. Regrets? Not even one. She kissed him softly. Though I should probably warn you, our wedding is going to be the most heavily guarded event in history. Obviously, I'm inviting heads of state and reformed crime lords. Mrs. Lim is demanding to cater, and your grandmother is already planning a ceremony that combines Catholic Mass with root work and Korean traditions. Christina laughed, full and free. It's going to be a disaster. It's going to be perfect. He spun her under the streetlights and she let herself fall into the moment, into the future, into the impossible love story that had started with coffee and needles and a man who'd seen her strength and called it beautiful. 6 months later, they married in that same cafe where everything had almost ended. Mrs. Lim officiated. She'd gotten licensed just for the occasion. Christina wore a dress that combined traditional Korean hanbok elements with African patterns her grandmother had designed. Park Hae-jong wore a suit with a pocket square made from the same fabric, a symbol of their merged worlds. And when they exchanged vows, Christina promised to always tell him the truth, even when it hurt, to stand beside him as he built something better than his legacy, to use her needles only for healing, except when violence was the only language left. Park Hae-jung promised to never make her smaller, to honor her strength as much as her softness, to build a world where their children could be both powerful and good, to love her fiercely, protect her absolutely, and trust her completely to save herself when she needed to. They kissed as husband and wife, and the cafe erupted in cheers. Outside, fireworks exploded. Park Hae-jung had arranged them special because their love story had started with explosions. So why not celebrate with them too? Later, much later, lying in bed in their shared penthouse, Christina traced the dragon tattoo on her husband's neck and thought about how far they'd both come. From violence to healing, from broken to whole, from alone to together. I love you, she whispered. I love you, he whispered back. My extraordinary, dangerous, beautiful wife. Thank you for taking a chance on a reformed crime lord who couldn't make a decent pancake. Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. She kissed him softly. For being brave enough to love someone as intense as I am. Someone has to match your energy. His arms tightened around her. Might as well be me. They fell asleep tangled together. Two people who'd found each other in a cafe full of danger and built something impossible. A love that survived explosions, transformed violence into purpose, and proved that sometimes the most unlikely people create the most extraordinary stories. And somewhere in Koreatown, Mrs. Lim smiled as she cleaned up from the wedding reception, thinking about the waitress who'd walked into her cafe 6 months ago and the crime lord who'd been coming for years. She'd known from the beginning they'd be something special. You couldn't miss it. The way they looked at each other like the world made sense finally. Like they'd been waiting their whole lives to find someone who matched their particular brand of magnificent chaos. The cafe door chimed. A new customer, looking lost and heartbroken, and like they needed more than just coffee. Mrs. Lim smiled wider. Another story was beginning, and she'd be here to witness it, just like always.